Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Random and Wonderful podcast, where I ask those random questions that end up being wonderful conversations. I'm your host, Grace Simmons, and I'm the founder of the Amethyst Hut LLC. I'm a mindset and confidence coach, and my goal each episode is to support you on your journey to become a more emotionally grounded and balanced person. I'm really excited because this is the beginning of an interview series where I'm chatting with these amazing women in the coaching space and sharing how they've turned their life situation into advocacy opportunities for themselves and other women. We're getting started with Karel Chan, a therapist turned happiness coach. I can't wait for you to hear her journey. Stay tuned. Perfect. Okay, so welcome to the Random and Wonderful podcast. I have a guest here, very excited. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Karel Chan. I'm happiness coach for women, and I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy to have you. Once I saw your write-up, I was like, oh my goodness, I definitely have to have her on here. It's going to be great. So I'm going to start with just something a little casual and easy. What's the most fun thing about you?
The most fun thing about me, oh my gosh. The first thing that came to mind for me, I guess, is the answer is that I actually have a side passion project that kind of occupies a lot of my life. You can see behind me that there's a lot of yarn and knitting.
Yes.
Knitting designer kind of on the side, and I've been doing that for almost 4 years actually.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm always thinking about that in the background of everything else that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Yeah, okay. Do you find it more, is it like a happy distraction, or is it more like, no, I'm focused on this and this is like your time?
It can be a little bit of both. And I think it's actually a really good gauge for mindfulness for me is when it's starting to feel not enjoyable, when it's starting to feel like a job, that's when it's time to pull back and notice what sort of relationship I'm having with it. Because it was always meant to be something that was like a bonus, like an enhancement of a life that was already really good and really full. And so as soon as I step into being hyper-focused on it or being obsessive about it, then I need to fine tune like what role it plays in my life.
I love that you're able to notice that too. That's helpful.
Yeah.
So you were a clinical mental health therapist.
I was for
10 years. Over to 10 years, and you switched over to being a happiness coach.
Yep.
How do you find that approach to be different, or what can you provide that you couldn't as a therapist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's actually a lot of crossover. So I think that's a really good question that you're asking, because the feeling of it can often be the same. And that I think in terms of happiness coaching, which falls into life coaching, there is often a mental health or wellness component. But what's different is that therapy is much more focused on quote unquote, what's wrong. And at this point in the field, it's very interested in diagnosing and looking at therapy as treatment. And I see coaching as looking ahead, looking at what's more, and helping people move toward that without the need for a diagnosis. And in fact, as a coach, I can't diagnose. So I've kind of left that behind for now. And it really opens up opportunities for me to work with people who are experiencing struggles that wouldn't fit into a mental health diagnosis.
Okay.
People like that.
Yeah.
They don't need they don't need treatment.
No, please keep going.
Yeah. And so kind of being in the therapy field and seeing a new client, there was always this pressure and requirement a lot of times. So
Mhm.
when you're working with insurance, as a clinician, you have to give a diagnosis. So this is a really important message that I do want people to know is if you've seen a therapist under insurance, you have a mental health diagnosis. Whether or not you know it, you have one. And I've met a lot of people who didn't know that. And that kind of alarmed me, where I'm like, you should know, you have a right to know what's on your medical record, right? So for me as a therapist, there was this requirement for me to meet someone and within the first hour of meeting them, give them a mental health diagnosis.
Mm.
Yeah. And a lot of
Okay.
people's experiences, and I see people's experiences as so fluid and so much of an amalgam of their life experiences, that how can you fit that into a cluster of symptoms in an hour, right?
Yeah.
um and so I did it because I had to, and I was very transparent about with clients, but I prefer not to. I think there's so much that we experience that doesn't fit into that doesn't require treatment, but very well could benefit from help and guidance and someone cheerleading you and holding your hand. And that's more of what I want to do.
That is amazing. I definitely did not realize the
Really?
diagnosis part of it. So I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, what was that like aha moment where you like for you to actually make that shift to say, okay, you know what, there is something specific I could do. I'm noticing that there's more that I could do, but what was that moment?
It was more like a series of moments,
Okay.
and it's very tied to my relationship with spirituality as well. And that's kind of another reason that I really wanted to move away from therapy. I think there is a metaphysical component to counseling theory, actually.
Mhm.
Another kind of secret that people don't really know. But I really wanted to I really wanted to break out of the bounds of therapy, right? Especially as I was seeing a lot of benefit to my own spirituality. And I had a lot of clients who were really interested in that. And I didn't feel that I could really take them there while I was still treating
Right.
them within the bounds of therapy, right? So, but the aha moment was really a series of awakenings that I had. The bulk of them were probably a couple of years ago, like kind of in the thick of the pandemic. I was going through a breakup, a really devastating breakup that surprised me, and really looking for deep healing and transformation. And I had been in therapy myself for over 10 years consistently. And it really frustrated me. I was like, I do the work myself, I provide the work. Why am I still feeling this way?
Yeah.
Right. And not even like, oh, I'm kind of sad. It was like, I'm having suicidal thoughts.
Mhm.
And this is not okay. Right. What am I missing? And it really turned me toward a deeper way of being with myself, that I call authentic self-love,
Mhm.
unwavering self-compassion, that really took me into this metaphysical relationship with different parts of me, my younger self, my future self. And I thought, I want to help other people do this,
Yeah.
right? I want to have I want to have the authority and the language and the freedom to guide other people, and especially women, right? Because I just know it so well, right?
Yeah.
Um, I want to be able to guide other people through this journey. And I don't think I can do it as a therapist. I
Mm.
want my reach to be much broader than that. I want to reach people outside of the state of my licensure, right? I want to, anyone in the world who wants to do this and happens to find me, I want to be able to help them. And that was really what got my gears turning to make this happen.
Mm. How do you incorporate that like spirituality when you're dealing with somebody who needs to like they're healing? How do
Mhm.
you get somebody to find that healing on their journey?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. The first thing that I help people see is the authenticity of their pain. I think we're in such a confused culture, I think, because there's one facet of culture that wants us to be completely pain-free and, bypass it all. And
Yep.
then there's another aspect of culture where we really kind of hold on to our pain and don't know how to let it go,
Mm.
right? Um, and I'm kind of wanting people to find their way in the middle of that, which is to say, your pain is speaking to you, right? Whatever pain we have, it's there for a reason. It has a deep-seated need. And the only way for us to move through that pain is to not only listen, but to heed what that pain is saying, right? What is it really needing? And when we can get really honest and get really deep into that listening, that hearing, then we can respond. And that's where the healing can begin to happen.
That is beautiful. It's so necessary to be able to get in touch with that pain instead of ignoring it or moving aside or just holding on to like that positively. I can get over it. I'll be fine. You're right. You really need to like dig into that.
Yeah.
Ah, I love the way you placed that. Okay, that was good. So I also want to get into, because you have one of your topics was about like the idea of modern women or the disposition of modern women. And we're
Mhm.
talking about happiness, we're talking about healing. How are we doing as modern women?
So it turns out that we're actually not very happy.
Mm.
And I don't know how surprising that might be to any women listening. Maybe some of them will be like, yeah, you're totally right. And others might be like, no, I think I'm happy. And so my answer really comes from 10 years of observation and working deeply with women, right? I've worked with men too, but I've, also worked with women. And but also in my own experience as a woman and being so curious about it and confused by it that I started
Mm.
doing a lot of research online. So there's actually been several journal articles that have been like research articles that have been written about women's happiness, especially in the past like 3 or 4 decades, that as the women's rights movement have, we've gotten more equal rights, we've gotten more visibility. There's a lot more conversations happening about women, about who we are, about being strong, about being accomplished, and allowing our experience to be seen. That the reported women's happiness has actually been declining.
Mm.
And so I think that, and so there's actually a very famous article called The Paradox of Declining Female Happiness. And it's so fascinating because you wouldn't expect that. And so I don't think that it's about how equal our rights are. I think that's obviously really important, but there's obviously a piece that's missing too, that having equal rights or moving toward equal rights still isn't the key to happiness.
Right.
And the way that I see it is, what is the context through which we've been advocating for equal rights? It's still been in the context of a society that leads with masculine archetypal qualities, right? And so I want to kind of break down. This isn't a comprehensive list, but there's the masculine archetype and the feminine archetype. And we all have qualities of these, no matter what gender we are. But so some of the qualities within the masculine archetype are competition, leadership, decisiveness, tactical decision-making, assertiveness, aggressiveness, provision, and dominance. And then qualities in the feminine archetype are nurturing, receiving, softness, emotion, intuition, governing, community, and relational or relationship.
Mm.
And so you can see that we all have these qualities within us, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But if you think about what gets us success in society, especially in the workplace, it's the masculine qualities.
Absolutely.
right? And so as women, when we want more visibility in society, we want more visibility in the workplace, we've been conditioned to lead with those qualities.
Mm.
And again, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if that success is what you want. And at the same time, this leads to exhaustion, and this leads to feeling lost or misaligned or disconnected with the feminine. I see this in individual women. I also see this in society, you know, and that's really,
Yes.
I just care so much about it, and so much of my own journey back home to me was
Hmm.
realizing that and reconnecting with my feminine.
I'm trying to, I completely agree with that. I know, like you mentioned, yes, it's present in both, but it's so necessary to be aware of who you are, especially as a woman, right? And being in contact with that femininity, because you're right, it leads to that exhaustion. You're trying so hard to not be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
or you're trying so hard to stick to this mold that isn't really you. And it's
Mm-hmm.
exhausting, it's
Mm-hmm.
draining. Ah, so
Yeah.
what can the modern woman do?
I think we can do I honestly think we can do anything we want,
Mhm.
but I don't think we can do everything that we want.
Mm, okay.
I would say that for anybody. I would say that about men too, but I'm speaking to women here, right? That we've been conditioned to, I don't even know that we've been conditioned to want everything, but maybe we've been conditioned to think that we should want everything or think that we want everything. And a lot of the work that I do with women who kind of get this point where they realize so there's kind of two camps of categories of women that I work with. One is the women who quote unquote have it all, right? So they have the career, they have the husband or the partner, they have the children, they have the home, and they're like, why am I still not happy?
Right.
I
Right.
thought I'd be happy by now, right? What's wrong with me? And then the other category is women who, and this is a category that I fell into, was women who don't have it all, who have been trying and failing in one or more of those domains and thinking, if I don't get those things, how will I ever be happy?
Yeah.
And I think these two categories feel it's the same, it's the same tone of pain, just in a very different situation. Right. And so the work that I do with them is really about taking a step back from the trying, right, the efforting, and asking, which of these things do I feel the most connected to?
Right.
Which of these things do I not necessarily feel connected to, but I feel like I need, right? There's an urgency, there's a tightness in
Mm,
my grasping of it. And whatever the answer is that's the area where we learn to let go. And that, depending on how far along you are in life and trying to have that could bring up a lot of grief, right? Letting go of a dream, letting go of a promise of success and happiness, letting
mhm.
go of an identity. But with that letting go really comes the energy and the openness to go further into that one that you really connect with.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And really claiming that aspect of your true self and your feminine nature, whichever one it is.
I wish that could just be, we're talking about going to or like working towards that journey. I wish this could just be like packaged and sent out, because that's definitely the answer to so many things. Is you're looking on either side like, oh, I really wish I had this, or I really wish I, could have these different things. I need to tick these different boxes to feel fulfilled. You're
Mhm.
skipping over that, like there's something else that's
Mhm.
deeper inside that you need to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it is like, if only, right? If only I had
Mm-hmm.
this, then I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even when you get to that, you answer that if only, there's still that unhappiness.
Right. Right.
So I'm curious, and you hit like on a few other points, but I'm wondering, what's one thing you wish people in your industry understood?
Oh gosh, this is the therapy industry or the coaching?
I will lean towards coaching.
Okay. You know, I'm still pretty new to the coaching industry. I just made the switch in March, so it's
Okay.
been like 6 weeks. So I can't really say because I think there's a lot of wisdom in the coaching industry already, that I'm really wanting to learn from. But I think that so if we can open it to just maybe people in the helping industry,
Yes.
um, one thing that I really wish that they understood is that the answers, like the big answers, um, they're not found in a book
Mm.
and they're not found on Instagram,
Yeah.
uh, that they're found deep within each of us. That I think that there's a tendency to want to collect information. I definitely do this too. I think we all do, but we collect information from out there, and that we will really want to kind of find the right package.
Yep.
That we're looking outward or trying to gather inward, and that the real journey is letting go of everything that we are taking in from outside of us and understanding how to go deeply within.
Mm.
And once we have an intimate knowledge and relationship with all the different parts of us, right? Going deep down into our core, the part of us that I think moves and beats without us even trying, right? Our
Yeah.
core intuition, our soul. Once we have a true connection to that, all the answers are there.
Wow. So going back to, I know you recently made the switch, but how did you notice that you were being pulled away? Because listening to you describe, it seems more like, well, yes, you should have been coaching for quite some time. Like this is you. This is obviously your lane, right? Um, that tug, or when you felt like you were being pulled away from that purpose. Because even as a therapist, I mean, you're still able to help people if that's in your nature, regardless of where you are. You're still able to do that. But being pulled away, or how did you notice that you're being pulled away from that true calling
Mm.
within yourself, and not necessarily as a therapist, you as a person?
Kind of like when did I start to think that being a therapist wasn't quite the right thing for me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I don't like there was definitely a time when I was like, I'm therapist for life. Um I think it was really when I'm gonna say this, but like caveat that it there's a lot of nuance there. But I really started to wonder if therapy was failing me as a client.
Mm. Okay.
And I've had wonderful therapists, um that I've had many long-term relationships with therapists, um and as a therapist myself, right, I can kind of evaluate and say, no, they were doing their job, they were very effective. I had trusting relationships with them, so it wasn't that they weren't delivering or supporting me. It was that therapy itself as a model just stopped being what my soul was needing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really this moment of, yeah, I've been in therapy for years. I do the work, right? I'm a very good student. I do the work. I give myself in my therapy work with clients, right? I've always said as a therapist, I live my work, and I was still struggling. I still couldn't latch on to a strong feeling of happiness in my life, even when I had things that one would think would make you happy, right? I didn't have it all, but I had a lot. But there was still a lot of anxious attachment, depression. I had a nicotine addiction for 20 years, eating disorder, like all these things that weren't getting resolved.
Right.
And I just thought, what else is there? I need something more powerful. And that really became a spiritual journey that started with looking for answers in God and the universe, and eventually coming back home to me and connecting with who I see as my wise feminine. And so my wise feminine is about 10 years older than me now, and she just knows so much more. And she shows up a lot, where she reminds me where I am, and she says, you are doing great, you've got this. And I trust her because she knows me, because she was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am like loving the talking to you. So
Oh,
at times I'm just like, but this is wonderful. Like I appreciate you sharing that part of your journey, first off. And not necessarily from the seat or the view of a therapist, but like this is your own personal life. You've actually lived this. You're
mhm.
figuring out that journey and you're sharing with others. Um, so what do you hope people would say about how you impacted them? What's your hope of your
Oh,
impact?
yeah. My hope is that people feel gratitude and inspiration from being truly seen and being truly loved.
Wow.
I I've worked, I mean, in 10 years, I've worked with easily hundreds of people, and for some of them, and they've either said this or I felt this, that I'm the only person in their lives that they ever felt really loved who they truly are.
Mm.
Um, Something that I would say to many clients who just kind of were in that same place that I was in, where like, I just can't feel happy. I just can't, that I would say, what I want most for you is for you to be able to see yourself the way that I see you, which is so pure and beautiful and, and kind and worthy of love, you know?
What a gift to tell someone. Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. And what a gift to be able to feel that for so many
Mhm.
people, you know? I feel so honored to be invited into people's lives in this way.
Ah, such a sweet spirit. Okay. So do you have any suggestions or books that you found or some resources that you found just were either helpful to you or maybe something that you share with your clients?
Yeah, yeah. So the one like more therapy related book that's on my list, that I keep saying all these things changed my life. They really did. But it's called The Emotionally Absent Mother
Okay.
by Jasmine Lee Corey. And it's not written for clinicians, it's written for the regular person. And it's about, I was thinking about this as I was preparing for this talk with you, and I was like, I don't think I like that title anymore. Because I think that it's very stigmatizing toward motherhood.
Mm.
There's already this joke, that therapy is all about mommy issues. So I'll tell you what the book is actually about. It's actually about the experience of the underparented. And
Okay.
very often people who are underparented, it's not because their parents were terrible people. And I would think more often than not, it's because their parents themselves were underparented.
Right.
So it's this generational kind of cultural thing that we're all going through, where we are underparented, where we don't receive enough of the good mother archetype.
Mm.
And there's so much that goes into what is good mothering. How does that prepare us for a deep kind of wholesome relationship with ourselves, and then to be able to successfully navigate adulthood. And what this book does is it kind of gives you, and this, the research is on people who have experienced underparenting, and the commonalities that they face. And so there's a lot of stuff that we struggle with in adulthood that we think is like something's wrong with me, or I have mental illness, right?
Yeah.
When it's actually that there was something missing for us growing up. And there's an opportunity for us to give that back to ourselves.
Wow. If so many people would see it that way, as if like it's that missing piece rather than there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And you need to fill it with whatever is not going to help,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so that book, I read that book in 3 hours. It was for myself. I read it in 3 hours and I was like, whoa, and really going through the practices that book recommends, like that's what really started this intense healing journey for me. So other books that I would recommend are more spiritually based and kind of take concepts from Buddhist teachings and philosophy. So there's one called Trusting the Gold by Tara Brach. She's a clinical psychologist, meditation teacher, and the gold she talks about in the book is your true self, is your core. So trusting the gold. And it's a beautifully illustrated book, very easy to read. There's 2 books about self-compassion that I love by Kristen Neff. She's all about self-compassion. If you look her up on Instagram or on the internet, she does lots of talks and she has workshops and workbooks. But the 2 books that she's written are Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. And then the later book is Fierce Self-Compassion, How Women Can Harness Kindness and Speak Up, Claim Their Power and Thrive. And I really love those books because they really shine a light on what self-compassion really is, right? Deep self-compassion. And it's not fluffy. It's not toxic positivity.
Yeah.
It's deep soul work. And then another book that I like is called Stop Missing Your Life. And it's by Corey Muscara. He's a former monk and now he's a meditation teacher. And this book is about learning how to be deeply present in a very unpresent world. So it's very relevant for our time. I think that he was a former monk, but you wouldn't know it by looking at him. He just looks like a normal guy. And I think that helps it be very approachable. And then the last book that I really love is The Book of Awakening by Mark Nepo. And Mark Nepo he's not affiliated with any spiritual school. He's just a spiritual teacher, author. And this is one of those books where like every day is a page. So it's very easy to read. You just read a page a day, and then there's like a reflection, like a sort of thought exercise, and then he has you do like a journal prompt or something. So you can very easily spend an entire year slowly awakening.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's good. Okay. All right. So one last question. What is your favorite self-care practice?
Oh my goodness. Hard to pick just one. Okay. I should just always go with the first ones that come to mind for me. And it's very simple. It's putting my hand on my heart and feeling the energy flow from me to me. And I can do this anywhere. And I'd recommend to other people, you can do this anywhere. And why it's my favorite is 1, you can do it anywhere. And 2, it's a pause. It's a moment of reconnecting with that deep core you. And oftentimes it's reconnecting with parts of you that you tend to neglect, right? We all have parts like that where they usually have some hurt that they carry and that maybe we're kind of tired of carrying them sometimes. We get distracted, they're annoying, right? And anytime we treat that part of us with neglect, we are compounding the hurt. So taking a moment to pause, put your hand on your heart, connect, right? And you can really imagine like a flow of energy from the hand into the heart. You're saying, I remember you're here.
That is powerful, Kara.
Yeah. So maybe it'll become your favorite self-care practice.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to start doing that just to remember. Yes, you're here. I am aware of you. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. So before we close, please tell everyone how they can find you, how they can get in contact with you, um, and yeah, just where to learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, for sure. So the primary place that you can find me is on Instagram. My Instagram is Anchored Awakening. So anchored like the boat, Anchored Awakening. I also have a website, anchoredawakening.com. And right now I do have, I offer one-on-one coaching, and I have a happiness program. It's called Say Yes to the Life You Want, and basically walks you through that kind of question we were talking about in the beginning of like, what is it that you really want? You know, what is it that you connect with, and what is it that you just kind of grasp at? And once we have that idea, then we move into really curating and building the life you want based on that, in your relationship with yourself, and then your relationship with your work and career, whatever you want that to look like, whether you want it a lot or you don't really want it at all. And then your relationship with other people and your community, and that includes romantic relationships. So it's a kind of a comprehensive happiness audit, and then
Yes.
building out the life that you really want. So yeah, I'm taking clients right now. I'm just really hoping to work with a lot more women on their happiness journey.
Awesome. Well, Kara, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I
Yeah, of
really appreciate it.
course. Thank you. Such a pleasure to talk with you.
Wow, that was amazing. I hope you enjoyed my chat with Karel Chan as much as I did. Here are a few takeaways to share. I think she hit several points, but I want to leave a couple of takeaways with you. First, be mindful of your energy, even when you're working on a hobby. Second, take the time to understand your authentic self. That means digging deep and understanding the pain you feel and getting clear on why you feel that way. And third, growth is a daily journey, so remember to be kind to yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and take advantage of those moments to say, I love you and I am here for you, to your inner self. If you are feverishly writing the books that Karel mentioned, don't worry, they are in the show notes. If you're interested in accepting the challenge of taking care of YOU, download the self-care checklist and let's get started. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Again, my name is Grace Simmons, and this has been the Random and Wonderful podcast. Remember to subscribe or follow so you are ready for the next episode, and please rate the show. Have a wonderful week. Take care, beautiful people, and I will talk to you next week.